So welcome back to the Common Constitutionalist Weekly Podcast, and I'm Brent, and I'm the Common Constitutionalist, one and the same. So last week, I told you that my two favorite topics were immigration and guns and gun control. Well, that still remains true, and I said that I was just going to talk about gun control last week, and today I'm just going to talk about illegal immigration. Actually, what I'm really going to talk about is a part of illegal immigration: deportation. Yes, deportation. And more specifically, we're going to talk about ICE Air. Yes, ICE, Immigration Services, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They are deporting people via aircraft from here to mainly Guatemala. So we'll talk about that today on the Common Constitutionalist.
You are listening.
No, you limey. They're not listening. They're watching.
The Common Constitutionalist, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, free from the prying eyes of establishment black helicopters.
Okay, welcome back. So like I said, we're going to talk about ICE Air, Immigration Customs Enforcement Air. And what they do is they don't own their own fleet of planes. What they do is they charter flights. They can charter commercial aircraft like the Boeing 737s and whatnot. And for we'll say for more naughty illegal immigrants, violent criminals and the like that they want to get rid of, they'll take a G4 or something like that, a smaller jet aircraft. And then for Cuban immigrants that need to go back to Cuba, they'll take little twin-engine puddle jumpers, those types of things. So I wasn't even really going to talk about illegal immigration, ICE Air, or anything like that. I had another kind of topic. I was working through something, and I happened upon CNN's homepage, website. And if you're food for thought, if you're a Trump-hating leftist, great website. If you're an American-hating leftist, awesome. It's for you, buddy. But, so I was on the CNN website, and sometimes I'll do that. It's nice to know what leftists think every once in a while. So you go on the Think Progress page when you really want the real rabid leftist or anarchist view. And then for the average run-of-the-mill leftist, you go on the CNN website and see what they're thinking, see what they're up to. The first three postings that I saw were regarding illegal immigrants, the DACA, the Dreamers, and ICE Air. And as I explained, ICE Air is the Immigration Customs Enforcement. What they do is they have deportation orders. They round up these people, and they walk them to the jet, and off they go to destinations, well, usually known. I was going to say unknown, but we know because most of them go to Guatemala. The first 3 or 4 articles on the CNN website were articles meant to make you feel bad for these poor downtrodden individuals. And to some extent, I do feel bad for these poor downtrodden individuals. I mean, they got here, they came for a reason. You hope it's a good reason. You hope it's to create a better life or something like that. You really do hope. But boy, I tell you, if the reality is that most of them are just here to either collect a check or just to get away from wherever they're at or to hide or so I decided to go ahead and do the podcast about this. It interests me. It was a fun topic, and it was actually fun to watch because they had some video attached to the article, and that was entertaining, shall we say. So the first article was entitled, on the CNN website, was entitled, "They Have One-Way Tickets Paid For by Washington." The subtitle was, "Behind the Scenes on an ICE Air Deportation Flight." Dun, dun, dun. Another one was ICE Air, How U.S. Deportation Flights Work. Who gives a crap as long as they do? Now, obviously CNN's subtitle was not "Who gives a crap as long as they do." I put that I put that in because, again, who gives a crap as long as they do, as in how the U.S. deportation flights work. So this is how it works. The article actually begins with a video, and the video shot in it's you know how you do you see in movies and whatnot where the hero is sauntering into the room, you know, 6 guns a-blazing or something like that, or an explosion's going off behind him, and they go to slow-mo and he's walking like this and it looks real theatric. Most of the video was shot in slow-mo, and it evokes emotion, and it's supposed to make you feel sorry for these guys. And there's this melancholy soundtrack behind, you know, the piano and playing, and in flats and minor keys to make you more emotional about these poor illegal immigrants that, of course, came here. Where or how? Through no fault of their own, of course. Anyway, so they use the slow motion effect, and you see their shoes, the tongues of their shoes are untied because they don't have shoelaces. The woo, poor boys, and they're flapping in the breeze, but they're flapping really slow because it's all slow motion. It actually is pretty entertaining. And they show them in handcuffs, and they show them on the tarmac, and the big jet Boeing 737 or whatever it is, commercial airliner, is sitting there waiting for them on the tarmac. And I think this is in Louisiana where they're going to be deported. So they're standing on the tarmac, and they get frisked down, patted down, frisks, and they're in leg irons and they're in handcuffs, and they have to show the leg irons and the handcuffs and hear the clinking of the leg irons, and then they show the slow motion perp walking, and it's actually obviously it's not supposed to be funny, but it's kind of funny. All the while, like I said, the melancholy music is playing in the background, and it's supposed to evoke emotion, to feel sorry for these people. Or excuse me, to feel sorry for these criminals. Now, one might say, of course, particularly if you're a leftist, one might say, how do you know they're criminals? They're just illegal immigrants. Excuse me, they're undocumented, would want to be Americans, or I don't even know how they classify them these days. It's gotten so ridiculous. The reason why I know they're criminals is because ICE is deporting them, because they broke the law, which makes them criminals. Through whoever's fault, it wasn't mine, and it wasn't yours, and it wasn't America's fault that they came here. It's their fault or their parents' fault. Whoever, I don't care whose fault it is, you're not supposed to be here, ergo you broke the law, ergo you're a criminal. See how this works? It's really simple. 1 + 1 = 2. It never equals 3. Sorry. So, one of the first things I noticed about these criminalians, as they were being perp walked in their leg irons and their handcuffs onto the aircraft, was and again, you got to wonder whether the leftists even notice this stuff, or whether they notice or don't care, or whether they gloss over it on purpose or something. But it was unsaid. It was kind of odd, actually. Everyone that I saw being perp walked up the aircraft stairs into the plane was a male between, say, ages 18 and 40. There wasn't a single female, there were no families, there were no toddlers, there were no little children, there were no DACA children, that type of thing. The people that, you know, the ones that we're supposed to feel sorry for and remain because through no fault of their own they came here when they were 3 weeks old, and now they're 10 years old or something like that, and what are you going to do with them? They're minors. Well, these kids weren't minors. These men were not minors. If they were, yeah, they were right on the cusp, you know. And so that was interesting, is that virtually, and again, there may have been some females, but I kind of doubt it. And the reason why I say that is because this was not this wasn't a news piece, all right? This wasn't just to inform people this is how ICE air works. This is how the deportation via air works, where they walk them up to the aircraft, they sit them down, and off they go. And like I said, the majority, I think like 60% of these people, they end up being deported to Guatemala. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's Guatemala's agreed to take them all. I don't know. I'm not even sure what the rule or regulation is on that, whether we need the home country's permission to bring them back, or whether we just say, you know, blank you, bud, these are your people, we're sending them back, and you better allow us to land. But and I'll get to that. I'll get to another idea I have about this later. So anyway, that was interesting to me, that everyone that they showed was a male between, I'm just going to say, between 18 and 40. And actually, I probably 18 and 25, because I didn't see any 40-year-old men. And frankly, I don't think I saw any 35-year-old men, although they were careful not to show any faces. They showed their tattered shoes and their blue jeans and certainly their handcuffs and absolutely their leg irons clanking across the tarmac. That they had to show for sure. So like I said, the CNN article claims that women, the way they board these things is the men board first, and then the women and families board after the men, which is kind of bass-ackwards if you ask me. And the article claims that there were women and families, but again, you didn't see any, which is really odd, because again, like I said, this is not a news piece. This is an immigration advocacy piece, okay, for Dreamers and DACA. It's an advocacy piece, plain and simple. They're trying to evoke emotion, so you feel sorry for these people, so you call up your state official or your federal government official or representative or senator, and you pressure them to say, this just isn't right. They've got leg irons on. It's like the slave trade. You can't do this. Let them go. And that's what they're trying to evoke. So this is an absolute advocacy piece. It has nothing to do with news. They're not trying to tell you something. That's why they did all this stuff in slow motion. And that was pretty entertaining. But the reason why I say that if there were women and families, they weren't allowed to show them, because again, to see about a bunch of 18 to 25-year-old men climbing aboard getting deported is one thing, but to see some weeping woman with her distraught baby being dragged up, you know, by their hair or something up on the tarmac and up the plank to the jet, that is something entirely different. And if CNN had that footage to show in slow-mo, guarantee you that would be the entire video. So like I said, if there were women and children there, I didn't see any. So on that wonderful note, why don't we take a real quick break, and I'll be right back after the break. Yeah, baby, deportation, like it.
You're watching the Common Constitutionalist video podcast.
Yeah, baby!
Okay, welcome back. We're talking again about the ICE air, Immigration's Custom Enforcement air, deportation by air, not by boat, and not by just strolling back across the Rio Grande, or paddling, or dog paddling, or whatever, or by bus or train, or however. This is by air, where they load the illegal immigrants on a plane or a jet, and they jet them off to some other place. Most of the time it's Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, maybe. I think those are the three major locations, the three vacation destinations. Yes, indeedy. So anyway, they to recap, they find these illegal immigrants to deport. They get them all together. They ship them to a central location, like in this particular case, I might have been Alexandria, Louisiana, or something like that, or down in Texas and in Arizona. They do this. There's several different places that they jet off to their locations known. And so they perp walk them up the gate or out, out onto the tarmac, and they send them off, and then they start taxiing down the runway. And this might sound mean, but I started laughing about this. I just thought this was hilarious. When you sit down on a flight and you're getting ready to go, and the flight attendant comes on the intercom, fasten your seatbelts, and they do the seatbelt, how they clasp the seatbelt, and put your seat back on, your tray, table upright, and so on and so forth. And this is how you use your life vest. Of course, you're going across continent, so a lot of good the life vest is going to do if you crash into the Rocky Mountains. But anyway, I digress. At any rate, so the funniest thing about this video was that they were waiting to take off, and the flight attendants in the background comes over the intercom, and this nice female flight attendant, and her voice, explaining the takeoff procedures, tray tables full upright and in your locked positions, and the whole spiel. And what I thought was hilarious was the whole speech was entirely in English, and I bet your bottom dollar that the majority, if not every single one of those gentlemen on the flight, knew not a word of Inglés. No habla, baby. I just thought that was hilarious, because they didn't do it in English and then in Spanish. If they did, then they cut it off. They just said, and she was so nice. And at the at the very end of this thing, the flight attendant says, "We thank you and have an enjoyable flight." I mean, honestly, these people are being deported. They're getting sent back to some swampland in Guatemala or something like that, back to nowhere land, from whence they came, after trudging through Central America, through the entire country of Mexico, which is pretty freaking large. And then they get here, they spend however much time, and then they're flown back, and this flight attendant has the nerve to say, "We thank you and have an enjoyable flight." And she said it in the sweetest Southern lady voice. It was awesome. And obviously they didn't pan over to the crowd or anything. They just saw the back of the heads, and I don't think it even registered with them, because like I said, most of them don't even speak English, so it just kind of whoop right over their heads. It didn't matter. I just thought that was hilarious. So anyway, another article says that nearly a third, this is the second or third, I don't know how many, there was at least 3 or 4, like I said, on the home page, and one after the other. It was hilarious. It was hilarious, the way they had this thing set up. Another article says that nearly a third of ISIS 240,255 deportees last year were from 3 countries in that region: Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. Hey, I got it right. Yay for me. Where experts say growing, and again they have to quote the unknown experts. They didn't even link to whoever the experts were. They're just experts. Just throw it out there. They're experts. Where experts say growing violence and economic problems have helped fuel a wave of immigration. Yes, they have. You know what else has helped fuel a wave of immigration? If I remember correctly, and I think I actually did an article on this 3 or 4 years ago anyway, where they were advertising on TV in Honduras, and I think it might have been all 3, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. They were advertising on TV and radio that as long as you get to America, you'll be able to stay in America. Now, the Obama administration denies that they were part of this, whether they funded it or not, or anything. There was no footprint necessarily, but it was just very coincidental that all these immigrants started coming in waves from these 3 different countries, and at the same time, you heard radio and TV ads, obviously in Spanish because it's Central America, saying that America's such a great place and that all you need to do, illegal or legal, all you need to do is get there and you'll be allowed to stay. And so that's where the flood of immigrants came from. And I'm almost certain that that's right. I did an article, it was like 2014 or something like that. Don't know. But I remember that specifically. So anyway, they say where the experts say growing violence and economic problems have helped fuel a wave of immigration, as well as TV ads and radio ads promoting America. Come to America, home of the free. Home of the free. Home of the free stuff. Yay. Oh yeah. So I had already said that ICE doesn't own their own aircraft. They don't own their own airline. They don't own their own fleet of airlines, and they do they lease, not lease, but charter commercial flights, and then they'll charter private aircraft like the Gulfstream type aircraft for the more violent criminals that can't go in general population, for want of a better term. And then they also will lease or charter these puddle jumpers if they don't have too far to go, like Florida to Cuba. And that it's not cheap though. I mean, you got to pay for this, right? No commercial airliner, they're in tough enough shape as it is. They're every other year they're going bankrupt, and then they get out of debt, and then they go back into debt, and it's just the way the airline industry works. If it wasn't so heavily regulated, it probably would work a lot better. But hey, that's another topic for another day, for shizzle. But it's not cheap. CNN reports the transporting deportees. Now here's another one. And they're trying to tug on your financial strings this time. Before it was the heartstrings with the slow-mo clanking of the chains and stuff like Jacob Marley or whatever. This time they're trying to hit you in the wallet to make you think this is really costly. Maybe it'll cost less to just keep them here. Well, it doesn't, obviously. Because it costs hundreds of billions of dollars every year to house all these illegal immigrants in the United States. They don't mention that though. So it's not cheap, as CNN reports. The deportees to their home countries cost an average of $1,978 per person last year, according to ICE. That's just the people, to getting the people on the plane and dealing with the people. A charter flight costs about $7,785 per flight hour, ICE says, and that covers the cost of not only the aircraft and the fuel, but also a pilot, flight crew, security personnel, and a nurse on board, just in case someone gets a boo-boo. I don't know how to say boo-boo in Spanish. Maybe it is just boo-boo. I don't know. So this sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. It adds up very quickly. When you're deporting 240,255 people every year via this program, that adds up in a big flippin' hurry. But it doesn't add up to nearly billions of dollars that it costs to keep them here. So it wouldn't matter how much we spent. We could have the Trump gold-plated airliner flying back and forth, and it still wouldn't cost as much as keeping them here. But that's just, nitpicking, I guess. So I had let's take a break. We'll take a quick break, and I want to come back and I'll tell you about my idea I have to save money on deporting these illegal aliens via airliners. Be right back.
You're listening to The Common Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
All right, so welcome back. I don't know how this last segment's going to be received, but yeah, I thought it was humorous. I just thought of it off the top of my head when I was making notes for this podcast. So let me run this by you. I was just discussing before the break how much it costs to deport these people via air. Obviously, you're not going to put them on a bus and send them back to Guatemala. I'll get to that. So rather than doing that aircraft thing where you pick them up and then you land and whatnot, why doesn't ICE just contract out somebody to rehab some old B-29s or some C-117s or some big cargo aircraft. It could be propeller driven, like the old World War II and Korean jobs, or it could be, you know, jets like the big cargo jets that we see today that can hold hundreds of people, obviously. And what you do is you have them rehab, and then you go on some site, like say eBay, and you buy a ton of parachutes. Okay. What? Wait for it. I looked on eBay this morning for, you know, the old World War II, the big round parachutes, not the controllable ones that you see today, that Special Forces guys use, and you know, the professional parachuting, whatever they're called. I don't. I'm drawing a blank. The people that parachute, civilians, parachutists. I don't know. Okay. So anyway, the big, you know, those humongous ones that you see in the World War II movies, you can buy these things on eBay for like $150 a piece, man. And so you buy thousands and thousands of these things, or you even contract somebody to, you know, somebody from Mexico can make you a bunch of parachutes. And what you do is you put all these perps on the C-117 or the B-29 or whatever you're going to put them on. You load up a bunch of parachutes, you strap them in, and you fly over Guatemala. And say you're flying at 10 or 15, 20,000 feet, you drop down to about 2,500 feet, and Geronimo, there, Guadalupe, off you go there, Jose, and you push them out the aircraft, and obviously you don't wait for them to pull the cord. The cord is attached to the aircraft, so the minute they jump out of the aircraft, the parachute is deployed. And you maybe go down to about 2,500 feet. So it's an easy aim. You hit your target wherever you're deployed to. That's where you're going to hit. It takes about 1,000 feet for the average parachute to open. So you really don't want to go much less than, say, 2,500 or 2,000 feet just to be safe. That's not even funny. It's mean. I get it. But obviously you don't want to drop down to 700 or 500 feet and then, Jose, okay, off you go, boom, and there's parachute's halfway open and he's already hitting the ground. You can't have that, obviously. We have to be humane about this. But I think that would be a great cost-saving thing. And actually, if you wanted to, you could contract some natives to go pick up the parachutes and UPS them back to you. You know, that would work out pretty good, I think, right? I just thought of that. That's a good idea. That's recycling, and the left's all about recycling, right? That's it's not green energy, but it's green. And actually, the parachutes are green. The old World War II parachutes are that olive drab. So anyway, I thought that was a good idea, a good cost-saving measure. Another cost-saving measure was to crunch the heck with the planes. Well, y'all didn't get here by aircraft. Most of you walked across the southern border. You walked across from Mexico. We don't care how you got here. It doesn't matter to us. It's not our fault that you got here. You're here. You need to go. So you don't put them in leg irons and whatnot. You just round them all up. First, you build the huge wall. You build Trump's huge wall. Trust me. You build his wall, and then you have that. What did he call it? The wonderful gate, the beautiful gate, the big beautiful gate. Okay, you build the wall and you have a big beautiful gate to let people in and out. And you walk them up to the gate. You open up the gate and tally ho, away you go, off to Mexico. It's Mexico's problem now. It's not their fault that they came, but it's their fault that Mexico allowed them to pass through, because Mexican immigration laws are insanely stringent. So it's obviously Mexico knows that this is happening, and they don't care as long as they don't stop in Mexico. So that's what you do. You just walk them up to the gate, and actually, if you wanted to, you wouldn't even have to do that. You'd just have guards posted around, and anyone, if you're an illegal immigrant and you don't want to be rounded up for deportation, you want to self-deport, this would be good. You know those automatic gates, the automatic door things for the handicap, or the, excuse me, the handy-capable? You you put one on the U.S. side. Obviously, it only opens for the U.S. side. No, you're not going to put an automatic door opener on the Mexico side so they can come in. It's like a one-way valve type of thing. So, and you just, anytime, day or night, if you want to self-deport, you just come up there and you hit the little handicap button, and the big beautiful doors, gates open, and you walk through, and they close behind you, and that's it. Have a nice day. Problem solved. That's my immigration tip for the day. I buy a bunch of parachutes and build a wall with a huge automatic gate with one of those handicap button thingies, and that will be great. So this is the Common Constitutionalist signing off for the week. Y'all have a great and blessed balance of the weekend, and it's still amazing up here. It's the middle of October. I love me, if this is what global warming's all about, I love me some global warming, because I'm in New England and I'm in shorts. You can't see, but I'm in shorts, and it's 70 something degrees out, and it's supposed to be even warmer tomorrow. Now it isn't going to stay that way because we're in New England. Next week we could have 6 inches of snow on the ground. Who the crap knows? But I'm loving global warming if this is what it is. So this is the Common Constitutionalist signing off. Have a nice day, folks. See ya.